Lately, I did a video on the Biblical Unitarian Podcast on their, I think it was their 15th podcast, where it says, "Should Jesus be worshipped?" And I commented on it, and I think I was pretty good at it, but I got an answer from the Biblical Unitarian Podcast staff. I don't know if it was Dustin Smith or whoever it was, but this is what they said. Biblical Unitarian Podcast. Lots of human beings are worshipped in the Bible. Perhaps reading a bit more before posting would be a wise move on your part. Now I want to demonstrate to you just how wrong this teaching on the worship of men is. And I'm going to give you some different commentaries, and we're going to look at the words so that we can understand that Unitarians have a false teaching when they start saying that men worship men in the Old Testament and even in the New. This is a false premise, and we're about to show you why. In Brown's commentary, we find that the word shaka, number 7812, means several things. But basically, it means to bow down. A, to bow down. B, to depress. C, to bow down, to prostrate oneself. And number one, before superior in homage, before God in worship, before false gods, and before angels. So you see that this is a general term that was used in the Old Testament. It's not just the meaning that shaka means to worship, like as to worship God. No, this is different meanings. All of these are different meanings applicable to the same word, and the only word that was used for worship in the Old Testament. The word shaka, as found in Vine's Expository Dictionary of Biblical Words, says that shaka is to worship, prostrate oneself, bow down. This word is found in modern Hebrew in the sense of to bow or stoop, but not in the general sense of to worship. The fact that it is found more than 170 times in the Hebrew Bible shows something of its cultural significance. Does the Bible teach that men can worship men in the Old Testament and the New? The answer is no. And I'm going to show you, first of all, let's start with Exodus, where it says, "Thou shalt worship no other God." Exodus 34:14. Exodus 20 is where it talks about the 10 Commandments, and it says that thou shalt not bow down nor serve any graven images or any gods, anything that is an image of things above in heaven or in earth or in the sea and the water. We should not bow down and worship any graven image or any likeness of anything. We should not. The Bible says that we should worship only God, and Exodus 20 and verse 5 says, "You shall not bow down nor serve them." When you look at Jesus, when he spoke about the same thing in Matthew 4:10, Satan is asking or telling him in verse 9 to bow down and worship. He says, "All these things will I give thee if thou wilt fall down and worship me." And Jesus answers and says, "You shall worship the Lord thy God, and him only shall thou serve." Notice that Jesus uses the word worship and serve, the same as in Exodus, where it talks about that you shall not bow down before anyone and serve. So Jesus is quoting from Exodus. Yet the Dustin Smith tells us that the first part, the worship, is reserved for men and anyone else, but the word serve is only reserved for God. But this is not true. The two words go together. Worship and serve. Bow down and serve. They go together, as we will see with further scriptures. But again, Exodus 34:14, "Thou shalt worship no other God but the Lord your God." And 2 Kings 17:36, "But the Lord, him shall ye worship, and to him shall you do sacrifice." None of the citations that the presenter gave show where men are sacrificing or making altars and sacrificing to these men that, according to Unitarians, are being worshipped. It says in 1 Chronicles 16:29, worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. We don't see anybody saying that about any man. And it goes on and on. Psalm 95:6, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord, our Maker. This is a strong context where it shows that worshiping God is a very special and unique thing that is done. Men have no part in this. You cannot worship another man. If you do, then it's idolatry. It's false. It's what the Bible condemns, because it's idolatry and false worship. Man worshiping man is false worship. Oh, Revelation 4:10 says, worship him that liveth forever and ever. And I can go on and on and on. The interesting is that, we told this to the presenter of the Biblical Unitarian Podcast in a comment. I said, you know, when Peter went up to see Cornelius, Cornelius bowed down and worshipped him. And Peter didn't accept it. Peter right away said, stand up, stand up. I am a man also such as you. In other words, Peter was saying, hey, men cannot be worshipped, only God. And then if you go to Revelation 19, it talks about where John, the Apostle John, bows down or wants to bow down to an angel. And the angel says, no, don't do it. Worship God. In other words, the angel told him, you don't worship men, you don't worship angels, you worship only God. So the message is clear that worship belongs exclusively to God and no one else.